So talk about this. It's so special, this film. How special did you know this was going into this? Did you feel the monumental weight of this, such a classic story, such a classic character?
I didn't feel a monumental weight, but I guess I feel a weight every time I take on any character, because I think that when you are particularly doing film and television, you're committing to, well, maybe not film itself, celluloid or whatever, but like it's recorded, it's for the generations, it's forever. Yeah. And when you take on something, like when you do it, that means nobody else gets to do it. Like you've taken that slot. Now that's going to be the version of what that is. So I take it all very seriously in that regard. And I loved that this is based on this really beloved IP, a children's book that's been around for decades and decades, and that children in the 50s who read it to then their kids when they had kids, and then their kids read it to their kids. And so it's continued to be this really iconic book. And I thought that was a really cool, launching point to bring it to life in this live action version and play this character that's full of optimism and joy and no real consequences.
How wonderful is that for you as an actor to that day to day? Do you inhabit all that and take all that in? Do you go home happier on a film like this than you would on something else?
Sometimes, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I like being able to know, or at least in my own assessment, like what is the job? Like what am I trying to tackle? And I knew Harold, like I just felt him. I just I tend to have a kid in me that I've fostered and want to hold on to my whole life. It's probably why I played Shazam. It's like very similar, very different, but also some Venn diagram in there. And with Harold, his just boundless optimism was something that I loved, and I wanted to, and also his complete like ignorance of not unintelligence, but ignorance to this three-dimensional kind of jaded world that he comes from a place with no pain and no fear and no anger and no it's all like great, and then to go into this world and miss all these social cues because he has no idea what people are doing honking at him. They're like, oh, they're saying hey, so that was a fun thing to be able to portray.
And families going to see this movie and kids going to see this movie, everything you just talked about, how you hope that works for kids and how their feelings about the world after seeing this movie. Maybe new eyes are open, people that don't know this property at all, obviously, which is going to be a big number of people. Sure. And also that the feeling of optimism and imagination and knowing that they can use that in life.
Absolutely. And that you hit it on the head there. The creativity, the imagination, the optimism, believing in oneself, these are the core tenets of what we try to infuse into this film and what we're hoping the audiences leave the theater with.
You mentioned Shazam. How does something like that get you ready for the physicality of something like this? Do you feel like you can handle anything after those? Because this is a pretty physical movie. You're all over the place with this one, too.
It was a physical movie, but it wasn't, Shazam was much more demanding physically, not just working out and, getting bigger. I mean, I've literally lost 20 pounds since I was that guy. This was more demanding in, like, it was physical in that, like, I'm running around drawing all of these things, in 3 dimensions in real life. And that was a really interesting challenge. Like, because I love using my imagination, but I've done, you've done plenty of green screen and, literally fighting dragons that aren't really there and whatever. But to be able to imagine, a bike, a tandem bike that's not there. And obviously, I'm looking at the real thing, what's about to pop up, and I go, okay, these are the lines, and then I just have to use muscle memory to remember all the lines of that, all the lines of the plane, and all that stuff. So it was physical in that regard.
It's different too, very different.
But very different. Yeah. And that was just a really fun challenge.
Yeah. Do you remember a certain time in your life as a young artist, as a young actor, where you realized how imagination was important to you in escaping life and for your craft, maybe when you first knew this was going to be what you wanted to do?
Yeah. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I've been losing myself into imaginative processes and also, things that have already people used imagination to bring forth. Like the amount of time I spent logged on to playing Super Mario Brothers, which was an incredible, feat of imagination. Like you got this little plumber that's running around jumping on mushrooms and turtles and, getting into castles and his princesses and another castle. Oh my gosh, these stories that I got to dive into with all my video games and all these movies and TV shows and everything always was spurring more and more imagination. And then fortunately, as a spazzy, nerdy actor kid, I found theater early on. And so my creative outlet was there. And I just got to go and dive into being different characters and really just immersing myself in them and the satisfaction of what that is. And then, you know, doing it well enough where people would applaud and laugh and, you know, and started creating probably a very unhealthy feedback loop of like, this is what I get validation.
Right.
But yeah, man, I've been doing that ever since I was a little kid and loving it.
And the world is so nuts right now, obviously. It always has been. But things are crazy, and there's so much anxiety, and everyone's on their phones, and it seems like daily there's something new. Talk about, in terms of this film, how this could help people and show that wider world. No one film can change things, but it really could be, put me in a good mood and, you know, opened up a world for me watching that. I know it's going to do that for lots of people. That must be a good feeling, and you must think about that as you're creating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, entertainment has always had an element of escapism. It's always had an element of respite, of being able to step away from the gnarliness and intensity of the real world that we all can't spend every second in. We can't. It's just not good for us. And I do agree with Alan Watts that, you know, there is a sense of play that we all need to have in this existence. And I think a movie like this allows people to kind of just step into that for a little while and have a little escape, and that points them in a more positive direction. And listen, not for nothing, but the color purple is a color of unity. It is neither red nor blue. It is bringing people together, politically and otherwise. And I think that that's important right now.
Sure.
I think that we really need to be leaning into that right now more than ever before.
And lastly, what can you tell us about this free fall film that's been announced? Is that in the works? Are you doing that?
Oh yeah, we're doing last bits of creative editing on the script and getting it all together. But it's a really cool piece. It's very simple. It's just a father-daughter rock climbing kind of survival movie, and but you know, that's the backdrop. The rock climbing. The story is really about their relationship and how they are missing each other and need to find each other again and growing, you know, in and of themselves. And but I think it's going to be. I've already been, you know, doing my rock climbing training and stuff, which has been a lot of fun.
I'm sure.
And we're going to shoot it in New Zealand, which I'm really excited about because I've been to New Zealand and I love New Zealand, but I've never gotten to work there. So yeah.